Hello and welcome to Stupid Ancient History with Midgley
and Taylor and our expert, non-expert and special guest James the Science Toolboy.
As always, we're wearing togas, our kylixes are full, it's particularly sweaty today, so good job togas are a bit open. And today we're going to look at Xerxes' continuing advance to Athens. Previously on Stupid Ancient History, we looked at the mass invasion of Greece by Xerxes and his Persian army of all Asia.
However, because it was, no pun intended there. Remember, we can't trust the accuracy of the Greek sources on this. They're not 100% reliable.
And how a relatively small band of Greeks, led by Leonidas, one of the kings of Sparta, managed to hold back this army of all Asia at the Battle of Thermopylae.
But choosing the right battlefield made all of Xerxes' might and preparations pretty useless until he found out about a secret goat path.
He didn't find out, someone grassed him.
But he's trying to say, isn't it? It's not military greatness, it's more luck.
And being sneaky.
Also, how easily the Greeks will instantly turn on each other.
Well, yeah.
And finally, we looked at how Xerxes responded to the lack of success on the battlefield.
Arguably, he was showing signs of being more sex-res than Xerxes. He went mental.
Not his finest day.
So you've called this one Road Trip to Athens. Where are we going?
Well, on a road trip.
Yes.
So Xerxes and, a few million of his friends,
Just his some close acquaintances.
Yeah, they head off exploring the open road into Greece.
So they're having like a lads' holiday then.
Yeah, lads.
Oh, I love that, like an army actually chanting, lads.
Lads. It's also quite a lot about boats as well, though, than it is about roads. But we're not going to get into that too much at the minute, are we?
Okay. Do these boats and roads eventually get to Athens?
Well, sort of.
Yeah.
Okay.
But first we need to pick up at the end of the Battle of Thermopylae, where after days of not going well, Xerxes finally defeated the Greeks.
And decapitated the body of Leonidas as
well.
So
are they classing that as a victory?
Absolutely. They won.
Even that appalling display was a victory.
They won, didn't they?
What did you say? It was like a million versus like 3,000.
Yeah.
3,000 was it?
They don't care how they win, do they? Clearly, they just want to win.
Just stop talking about numbers.
They just want to win.
They won.
Okay.
So it seems the impact of this last stand at Thermopylae is not necessarily lost on Xerxes.
Just revelling in his epic victory.
Absolutely. I mean, even though he technically won the battle, he didn't win it well, did he?
No, I mean, it took his forces a very long time to subdue such a small force, and his casualties were very high. So effectively, it meant that the Greeks could use this as a propaganda victory.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the Persians just look...
Yeah, there's a million of them, but they fall over.
Yeah,
just look at it when they're done.
We defeated them with 3,000. What's the worst
it
that can
makes
happen?
them look pathetic, and also the fact that they've got so many. It's like the opposite of the saying safety in numbers. But the fact they've got that many,
no safety,
no matter how many men you've got. But the fact that they take so many, it kind of shows possibly that they haven't got a lot of faith in their own troops.
Yeah, and the Greeks will be looking at it going, oh, this will be easy. What's the worst that can happen?
Exactly.
So in an attempt to rectify this calamity, Xerxes hatches the following plan to Herodotus.
So it says, Xerxes had arranged that of the 20,000 men in the Persian army who had been killed at Thermopylae, all except about 1,000 should be buried in trenches and covered over with earth and leaves to prevent their being seen by anyone from the fleet. The remaining 1,000 were left exposed.
So he's trying to
hide the evidence.
He's trying to spin this that I only lost the 20th of what I did.
Yeah.
It's like he's just hiding the evidence.
Yeah,
really.
Just literally, quite literally sweeping it under the rug.
It's quite disrespectful as well, isn't it, to the dead, just like bury some of them and not the others.
Well, yeah, he's got a plan there, but he also makes sure that all the Greek bodies, including those of the Helots, who are like Spartan slaves who've accompanied them, to carry the shields and shine the helmets, accompanied the soldiers, were on full display.
Right, okay.
And as his army continues through Greece, he offers safe passage to any Greek wanting to go and visit the battlefield. Kind of like, go and look at all the dead Greeks, look what we did. But then Herodotus gives us this little snippet.
So it says, all who could cross the water and toured the battlefield to see the bodies. Some of the corpses were, of course, those of helots, but the sightseers imagined that they were all Spartan and Thespians. However, Xerxes' ludicrous attempt to conceal the number of his own dead deceived nobody. For one side, 1,000 corpses lay scattered, and on the other side were the 4,000 all lying together in the same spot.
So it's
Right,
kind of
okay.
like, come and look at the battlefield, but don't look behind that tree. Nothing behind that tree. Nothing to see here.
It's pretty stupid that he thought he could get away with it, to be honest, isn't
Could
it?
have staged it a little bit better.
Yeah.
It looked like he didn't put much thought into that.
No.
You mentioned boats earlier. You did. I think you mentioned the Persians, like they did bring a navy, even though they didn't transport their troops on it. They were over land.
Yeah.
Would like just trying to use some boats to put some troops like behind the Greeks not be better than just waiting for some rando to tell you about goat path?
Maybe.
So the Persians did indeed have a huge navy, but just as the land force, they weren't having the best of times either. Things just carry on getting worse.
Yeah. So one reason why Thermopylae was such a good place to fight was because just as on the land, any access to the sea was through a similarly narrow gap, through a narrow strait of water.
And the boats having a bad time as well.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. I can see where this is going.
Yeah, so at the same time as the Spartans were occupying the hot gates at Thermopylae, a combined Greek force under the command of a Spartan called Eurybiades, had stationed itself at Artemisium.
So as the Persian fleet approaches, thinking, haha, we'll sneak round them, no one will notice our giant navy, Eurybiades gets ready to retreat. You know, sees massive Persian navy, goes,
Yeah.
maybe not. But his Athenian counterpart, a man called Themistocles, he has other ideas.
Right. Okay.
So, hearing about this imposing Persian fleet heading his way, Themistocles persuades Eurybiades to keep the fleet in place.
How does he bribe him?
With cash.
Oh, okay.
Even though the Spartans aren't meant to have money, Eurybiades is open to...
They don't have money.
No.
Oh. Okay.
That's a whole different podcast.
Right. All right.
He bribes Eurybiades to keep the fleet in place. And as the Persian fleet sailed down the Straits of Artemisium, Themistocles orders all of these Greek ships, who he's effectively in charge of now, to form a kyclo, or a circle.
Which is, in layman's terms, a bit like a naval hedgehog.
Okay.
I think that's what the British Navy is missing, personally.
Hedgehogs.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good idea. Basically, they tie the back of all the ships together,
Okay.
pull them all in, so whichever direction you approach it from, it's the pointy end.
Right.
Face
Okay.
out. You know, like a hedgehog rolls into a ball.
Yeah.
Naval hedgehog.
Okay.
It's
fair
a good
enough.
thing. So this meant that as the Persians approach, they have no clear target to aim for, because ideally they want to hit the sides of the Greeks. So realistically, they have no option just to sail around them and hope nothing bad happens. And obviously, nothing bad ever happens in these situations.
How quickly can they untie these ships? Like, they must be quite stationary if they're all pointing different directions.
Chop the rope.
Is that
and
it?
row. Yeah,
Right,
and
okay.
literally, as they did, Themistocles gives the order to the Greeks. They cut the rope and they start rowing at full whack.
Right,
so the
okay.
ships start breaking out of their circle.
Yeah, so their experience and skill at kind of naval warfare meant that the Greek ships burst out from their formation and into the sides of the passing Persian ships.
Yeah, and they could pick up quite a bit of speed quite early on. Because when you think about
How many rowers did one of these ships have?
somewhere between 50 and 80,
Right,
but
okay.
don't think of rowers like we think about rowers now. I mean, these guys will have looked like Popeye. Their arms will have been
it was their job.
beasts. Yeah, it was their
they,
job.
they skip leg day.
They're like a man-powered water-based ballistic, aren't they, basically?
Yeah, pretty much. And they can go, like I said, they can pick up speed pretty quickly, these guys with massive forearms.
However, no matter how Popeye-esque their arms were, it wasn't quite enough to stop the Persian fleet. So the Greeks did inflict kind of notable damage to the Persians before they had to retreat further south.
Yeah. So they caused them some, shall we say, distress,
Right, okay.
rather than destroying the fleet. But it's still not going well.
How bad did it go for the Persians? Like, is it Thermopylae bad or?
No, the Battle of Artemisium's not Thermopylae bad. It's more of a no-score draw.
Right, okay.
There's some sinking, the Persians carry on, the Greeks don't stop them, but ultimately it means the Persians can't just sneak around the back of the Spartans.
Okay.
But that wasn't quite the end of Xerxes' naval shenanigans.
Please say sea monsters.
Not
No.
quite, no.
Damn.
So Xerxes had split his navy up, having some sail through this narrow gap past Artemisium, and the rest round the outer coast of Greece, partly because they wouldn't all fit,
Right, okay.
and also, just in case some Greeks win. So those sailing round into the Greater Aegean are struck by a violent storm, which significantly impacts on their numbers. Or, as Herodotus puts it,
Their fate was miserable, just as they, there you go, just as they were off the hollows of Euboea, the wind and rain began, and every ship, overpowered and forced to run blind before it, piled up on the rocks. God was indeed doing everything possible to reduce the superiority of the Persian fleet and bring it down to the size of the Greek.
Right, okay.
so
Is that him kind of having a pop saying, yeah, God's getting him back, God's on the side of the Greeks because
it's partly that.
they're not playing fair?
And also, don't forget there was that oracle about pray to the winds, it will be your friend.
Yeah.
Turns out it's true. Also, it's a notoriously rough part of the coast. That.
What time of year is this?
It's about September. So
Would it
this-
not have been a better idea to do this in summer when it was calmer, or
But it'd be too hot.
they're from the Middle East?
Yeah,
It can't be too hot for them.
But then the Spartans wouldn't be celebrating Carneia.
Right, okay.
So yeah, so it's a rough part of the coast. The winds are starting to pick up anyway. It doesn't go well. And it also doesn't help that following the retreat from Artemisium, Themistocles has a bit of a cunning plan. He kind of calls in or stops off at all the suitable coves and docks and bays where he knows the Persians are going to stop to kind of have a rest, resupply, or so on. And when he gets to these places, because he's in a faster ship, he gets there first, he carves the following message in Greek into the rocks there, because don't forget, most of the Persian Navy are actually ethnically Greek, so they'll be able to read it,
Okay.
but their Persian overlords will be looking at it going, what's that over there? So Herodotus says,
Men of Ionia, his message ran, it is wrong that you should make war upon your fathers and help to bring Greeks into subjugation. The best thing you can do is to join our side. If this is impossible, you might at least remain neutral and ask the Carians to do the same. If you are unable to do either, but are held by a compulsion so strong that it puts desertion out of the question, there is still another course open to you. In the next battle, remember that you and we are of the same blood, that our quarrel with Persia arose originally on your account, and fight badly. How quick is he getting to these places before everyone else?
also, chiseling it into a rock.
I was going to say that'd take a while using spray paint, let alone using a blooming chisel and a hammer.
Well, this is what they used to, this is how they do it. But yeah, he's basically leaving them little messages going, lads, just fight badly in a few
I like that. So yeah, join us. If you can't run away, if that doesn't sue, just balls it up.
Yeah, pretty much. And then also there's that little dig of, don't forget, this all started because we came to help you.
This also helps explain why there's so many statues from the ancient world, because if they could knock that out so quickly, then they could clearly knock a statue out about every hour, couldn't
Absolutely.
they, without any
Maybe-
issues?
Maybe while he was chiseling that, there was another guy just making a nice little statue at the side.
Yeah.
Well, apparently not. You told me that poor running bloke at marathon. He didn't. He didn't get a statue, did he?
They couldn't, he was too fast.
And then he died. They could have done one of him lay down, I suppose.
Just dead. Statues aside, yes, so Themistocles is merrily vandalising the Greek coast.
He just, bobbing about, putting up,
Tagging it.
Yeah, tag it, doing tags.
And moving on.
So this little boat trip isn't going particularly well for him.
Not really, no.
After the balls of Thermopylae, are things going better on land?
Well, sort of,
Okay.
but also not that well. So after Thermopylae, the mainland force is able to make its way to Athens, facing limited resistance.
Are these because they're abandoned towns and cities, or there's
No,
nothing
the
there?
towns and cities are there, but as the main reason is
Because it's absolutely massive.
Right, okay.
This massive army still marching up. I mean, can you imagine? You sat in your little house in Greece, looking out the window. What's that on the Oh no, it's the Persians. Should we just pack it in? Yeah.
Right, okay.
So Xerxes, however, does add further weight to his propaganda campaign. So not only just burying his soldiers and pointing out the dead Greeks, he decides to send a detachment to take Delphi.
Okay, those oracles there, aren't they?
Yeah, so Delphi's like a really sacred site to the Greeks.
It's Apollo city, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, the priests of Apollo are there. It's where the Greeks always go and ask for advice before doing things.
They're half-arsed, not advice,
yeah,
riddles.
they're rambling riddle advice. But it's really important to the Greeks. So Xerxes thinks, if he can take Apollo's temple at Delphi, then this will show the Greeks that the gods are on his side, and they'll all pack in and go home.
Okay, so what happens?
Well, as the Persians approach Delphi, which is a very mountainous part of Greece, Herodotus says,
What occurred next is surely one of the most amazing things ever known.
Oh, he
Bit
set the bar high here.
I'd say it's a bit like the day I was born. Yeah. Only joking. For just as the Persians came to the shrine of Athene, Pranea, thunderbolts fell on them from the sky, and two pinnacles of rock torn from Panusis came crashing and rumbling down amongst them, killing a large number. All these things happening together caused a panic amongst the Persian troops. They fled, and the Delphinians, seeing them on the run, came down upon them and attacked them with great slaughter.
so the weather.
The weather, I'm calling some shenanigans on that.
Oh, no, it gets better.
There is a story I have learned amongst those who got away, that there was yet another miraculous occurrence. They saw, so they said, two gigantic hoplites, taller than ever a man was, pursuing them and cutting them down.
I'm calling more shenanigans.
What, giant stone
So-
soldiers coming out of the mountains?
Yeah, so they got struck by thunder, rock started falling on them, and these two titan rock men started chasing them.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And
Is this Herodotus being Herodotus?
well, he does say this is a story I have heard.
Story I have made up.
Well, no, it's the gods as protecting Delphi. Look, giant
Yeah.
stone hoplites, rah. But he doesn't leave it there. He also ends with this little...
The rocks which fell from Parnassus were still there in my time. They lay in the enclosure around the shrine of Pranea, where they embedded themselves after crashing through the Persian troops.
Right, okay.
So it's not... There's degrees of shenanigans. We can probably say giant stone soldiers.
Yeah.
Landslide, bad weather,
How,
Possible.
so Herodotus is about 100 years after this.
50 to 100.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
about 50 years.
Okay, so,
afterwards.
so in his time there's two massive rocks in Delphi.
Yeah, well, down the hill.
Right,
Where
yeah.
they've gone, "Nyeh,"
Okay.
but no stone soldiers.
Going well for the Persians then.
No.
Alright, are we at Athens now? It's taken a while.
Pretty much.
So are there is there something else nonsensical happen?
I don't know what you mean. This
The
is all
volcano erupts.
obviously completely true.
We've had,
No.
so far, had sea monsters, giant hoplites, thunderbolts. Go on. Something else must happen at this point.
No.
Oh. Yes! Normality!
So, well, maybe. So Xerxes and his army finally get to Athens, but the city is virtually deserted. Having learned of this massive force heading the way, many of the people of Athens have fled to some of the nearby islands, such as Salamis.
Okay.
You know, they're not hanging around for this. Or, as Herodotus describes,
The Persians found Athens itself abandoned, except for a few people in the temple of Athene Polius, temple stewards and needy folk, who had barricaded the Acropolis against the invaders with planks and timbers. It was partly their poverty which prevented them from seeking shelter in Salamis with the rest, and partly their belief that they had discovered the real meaning of the priestess's oracle, that the wooden wall would not be taken. The wooden wall, in their minds, was not the ships, but the barricade, and that would save them.
so when he gets to Athens, basically he's left looking at the religious zealots
Yeah.
and the poor
Poor
people.
people.
Yeah, who
So
are too
I'm about to say, so even when they're fleeing for their lives from a mass invasion, they don't just say, right, everyone on the boat.
No.
They have to
Pay
pay
my money.
Right, of course.
Yeah.
Sounds great.
No.
So, are they happy just burning Athens when they get there? Or?
So yeah, they take the Acropolis, and Xerxes burns Athens to the ground.
Oh, cool. So he's fulfilled his father's remember the Athenians.
He's remembered them.
Yeah.
So he's burnt Athens to the ground, but there's still the little problem of the Athenians
So they're hiding in this.
on these islands. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's remembered Athens,
But
the Athenians are
so
still
the
there.
people that fill it up have gone.
Yeah, and they decide, those who aren't still in Athens, decide that they're going to fight the Persians at sea.
But that's the next episode,
Okay.
so we'll leave that for now.
So again, the big points we need to just draw out of this whole magical shenanigans is it's still not going well for Xerxes.
No.
I mean, he's struggling a lot.
He's just bumbling into one disaster after another.
Yeah, I mean, it's partly not just his fault. I mean, Greece is very mountainous, it's very hilly. It's not the best place to march an army of all Asia through.
That's not a recent development. He probably should have thought
Yeah.
that before he went there.
And maybe if all these things kept going wrong, maybe he should have kind of cut his losses and thought, you know what, I'll just leave it now.
Maybe,
We'll take the north half of Greece and just come back
Yeah,
later.
we'll come back later and do the rest.
maybe I should stop listening to a tosser. This doesn't seem to be worth it.
The one who's never been on a military campaign and he's basically just at home.
Tell
Yeah.
us to call in the shots.
Obviously the best person to listen to.
And to be fair though, don't forget it's Mardonius' general who's also saying this is a good idea.
Was that
This
the
is-
exiled Spartan?
No, he's also saying this is a good idea. Mardonius is the guy who fell foul of the sea monsters the first time.
Okay.
So yeah, the big issue is was this really just a bad idea?
Yes.
Badly planned, I'd say.
I mean,
Well, no, it was very, very well planned, well prepared for. It's just
things happened.
things happened, and yeah, there's a lot of planning, but little forethought.
I really hope that guy who was told to stay behind with the women is having the time of his life. It's the only bloke in Persia. Just-
Well, pretty much.
Your husband's dead. Come on.
Straight to the gutter, Taylor.
No, this is vindication. He's like, told you so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, either way, if an army of all Asia can't take Greece, with all the planning and all the preparation and decades of work gone into this, and yeah, they didn't think about the weather.
Or the geography.
Or the geography.
If only the Met Office had been there at the time.
They'd still get the weather.
Well, yeah, that's true.
So there you have it, a quick ramble through Xerxes' ongoing advance towards Athens. Thank you for listening. We hope this has been useful. Leave us a comment below, and until next time, goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.